being a side man or whatever you want to say, like what I am. Sometimes you take the credit for when things go horribly wrong. Like a singer doesn't know first thing about how to start or end a song, and everyone's looking right at you. And then when it goes awesome, they're like, she's the best singer in the world, you know? So you gotta, it's maddening if you let it. But so I'm kind of just playing a different game in my head.
When you're driven, the need to accomplish a goal is relentless. Hard work and ambition compel you to do whatever's necessary. In my work as a personal injury trial lawyer for 18 years, it's common to meet driven people. Those with drive can have different personalities, careers, or backgrounds, but they possess one common factor. Despite their passions, driven people want to surround and motivate themselves with other driven people. If you want to learn how to overcome obstacles by learning from others, then tune in here. This is the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into episode 74 of the Driven Crowd Podcast, fueled by Snellings Law. I'm your host, Scott Snellings. I'm joined today by Joe Vanzant. Joe is a native of Celina, Texas, and embarked on his musical journey at a young age, beginning with piano before transitioning to guitar. Influenced by blues legends like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Joe developed a deep appreciation for various musical styles, including blues, rock, country, and soul. His proficiency spans multiple instruments, such as electric and acoustic guitars, slide guitar, piano, and drums. As a performer, Joe's made significant strides in the DFW music community. He has performed as lead guitarist for country artist Grace Tyler and is currently lead guitarist for Jake Ryan and Justin Cashin, as well as many others. Joe, welcome to the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we got you to the right spot, which is a good start, right?
Yeah.
We had some confusion on directions getting started here this morning, which is all good. This is a very confusing area where we are.
A lot of buildings.
A lot of buildings, yes. A lot of tall buildings. All right. So let's start off with, how did you end up, finding a love for music?
I think it was by accident. Like
fair enough.
Most good things, maybe. I started at playing piano at age 8, I guess. My parents were like, you got to do something, kick a soccer ball or, karate or something. And I kind of didn't make a choice, so they chose for me, and I hated it. It was classical piano with a very stern teacher who I'm thankful for now, but man, did I not enjoy it. And then I just kind of put myself into that, and it became playing blues guitar or whatever.
So you were the quintessential kid whose, parents mandated you're going to go do piano lessons and probably dragged you kicking and screaming to the piano teacher's house.
That summer camp was worst of all. All my friends were at my house going to the pool, and I had to get carted off to piano camp. Man, I will never forget it.
And so at what point did, hating going to lessons transition into, hey, okay, I'm actually kind of good at this, or I kind of enjoy this, or I understand this?
About 3 years into playing the piano, my teacher realized that I wasn't sight reading. I had just been listening by ear, and she changed her teaching style after that and kind of let me, she realized that, he's not going to play anything he doesn't want to play, so let's just save the time. And then it was shortly after that I found the guitar, or it found me, or whatever you want to say, and that became, everything I do on that is me, whether it's good or bad. There's nobody saying you have to turn this in by 8 o'clock on a Wednesday, or you have to do a recital for a ribbon or some nonsense. I just kind of took over and got to, put my own ideas in, or not play for a week if I wanted to,
Yeah.
It's just the whole thing of being told what to do, which is, it still doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah. So we're picking up on the stubborn attitude.
Yeah,
I'm catching that. I'm sure your mom and dad would agree that, that's definitely one of Joe's characteristics, is his stubbornness.
Oh yeah.
So at what point did you kind of figure out, like, hey, I don't need to look at music. I can just hear this and know how to play it? Because that's a unique talent.
I equated it to as if I was seeing something. I would hear it. She would play the piece for me. The week, I didn't pick the piece. We'd have like a composer of the month, and she'd be like, this is the piece for today. And I would just kind of hear, first of all, what key are we in? Where's home base of this tune here? And then I wouldn't get it 100%, but I would kind of learn the language over the over the exact, data or whatever. I was like, this piece is speaking to me in this kind of way, and it kind of does a thing over here. And so over time, I guess I kind of, got good enough at that where she was like, oh, he must be just reading. But I wasn't turning pages or anything. A lot of red flags probably went up for her. And then one day she was like, wait a minute, this thing's upside down. How are you?
That's funny. So were you just kind of ad-libbing as you went? Like you had this general kind of melody, if you will, and then you're kind of doing your own thing along the way?
A lot of those pieces have like very recognizable melodies. So if you kind of get that, everything under it or preceding it you can kind of like imagine what it would be and get close to it. So I was kind of doing that. And, for recitals and whatnot, there would be a theme or whatever, and 10 kids would play the same song in a row. So I heard it enough, and I kind of just, maybe put my own tempo to it or something like that. But I definitely wasn't recreating anything note for note perfectly, but I got the feel, and I got to a point where I was having fun a little bit.
There you go. And that little bit of fun is probably what helped you transition into actually enjoying music.
Yes, definitely.
And so this is just so interesting to me because, as many people did during COVID, I started to learn the guitar. And
no way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I had the Fender app, and that was my first teacher. And, I really started to have the time to actually do it. And so I learned a lot of chords. I started learning some music, but it was always a struggle for me because like it didn't make sense in my head. Right? Like, I don't have that ability. It was all memorization. And I could memorize a song and then not play it and come back. And it took me forever to figure out just the strum pattern again, because it didn't click in my head. So for you, that's almost like this inherent characteristic. It just clicks. At least that's what it sounds like.
Well, it's a curse too, because you kind of like abbreviate, like, let's say key solos that you like to hear growing up. You can get the gist of it, but you kind of can't dial it in note for note. But I never wanted to. So it works for you and against you. If that day comes where you do have to learn a piece of music, start to finish, like I had to play the national anthem at graduation. I was like, wait a minute, I gotta sit down with this. Like, I'm just, spazzing in a major key. We gotta like, honor the country correctly here.
They don't want to hear Jimi Hendrix version.
No, I knew I couldn't do that. I knew that was off the table.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so you kind of find this talent with the piano. How did you end up with the guitar?
One of my dad's friends actually still is a guitar player. And he loaned me this amplifier, and I didn't have a guitar. So I started playing the piano like more and more begrudgingly, and finally kind of just went out and bought a cheap guitar and electric guitar.
Okay.
And with no amp. So it sounded, terrible. Not immediately discouraging. Like, this is supposed to sound huge. What in the world?
Where's the distortion?
Yeah, where's the flanger? And so one day I found that amp in the trunk of my dad's car, and he's like, there's one more piece we want you to learn on piano because we know you're never gonna touch it again. And I was big into John Williams scores and movie scores that I liked. At that point, I was kind of playing what I wanted to. So I sat for like one last time, just learning something for them. And then I got that amp and, heard first it was like 50s rock, early kind of clean tone, Chuck Berry and all of that. I think a lot of people start there. And then, to find out the one of the best guitar players is from Texas and, just larger than life, Stevie Ray Vaughan. That was kind of it.
Very cool. So how did you end up with this guitar, the cheap guitar that you bought? Did you go get lessons or were you able to figure it out on your own?
No, just like you said, kind of, if you learn a couple chords at first, you kind of have to start there because it hurts, you can't just start flying on the thing.
It does hurt. You have to build up those calluses.
Like an F chord is terrible. Like a barred F chord. I used to sit at the TV and just death clamp, just get it in there. You kind of have to get some circuit training going before you do anything. So similar to what
and so real quick, explain a bar chord to those who don't have any idea and are listening to this.
Well, so you think you just lightly press, maybe apply some force, but then imagine telling 3 of your fingers to do just that and the other one to, like, on your bone and nervous system of the finger, which hurts, clamp it as hard as you can, while simultaneously doing that. And then that's only for 4 bars. You're about to have to switch. Yeah. And then the other hand's doing something else, holding this piece of plastic that feels alien. It is not fun. It's
right.
Discouraging a lot of the time. But, you get that first chord and that's all you want to play. It's like, yes.
This actually sounds good.
Yeah.
And then you work on the transitions and they don't sound good at all.
Yeah.
And then they sound okay. Yeah. It amazes me to watch professional guitarists and to just watch the way that they so easily fly between chords and chords that I've tried to play, and I know how hard those are to hold, and it's almost like that muscle memory is there and they don't even think about it.
Yeah,
because that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, you would be able to speak better to that than me, but what kind of focus did you have to get to where you're like, hey, I'm pretty dang good at the guitar?
It was an addiction. It was like, I don't feel right inside. I know there's something to be had here. And it was just a tiny little piece at a time. First came a little E chord, then this little, E sus chord or something like that. And it was like, I'll never forget that because of how hard that was to achieve. And now I want the next piece. And it wasn't like, I want to be good. I want to shred. I never wanted to play in front of anybody. For me was like, that sucked. Let's make it worth it, So, starting out with chords and eventually blues passages, blues lines, blues licks, whatever, that was a whole other animal. But it was always just one little like nugget of gold at a time. And I was like, that's with me forever. Let's keep going,
Well, and I think that's so huge because, as with many things in life, I think the guitar is a really good example. When you first pick it up, it's awful, right? But you're excited. You're excited because it's going to sound awful because you've never played it before. And then you learn that first chord, and then you learn the second chord, and then you start getting to the third chord, and then you start trying to play some tunes, and it's just terrible, and it's really frustrating. And so for a lot of people, me included, you get frustrated, and then it's like, I should probably go play the guitar, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
And so what about that to you? Like, how did you get through those moments of, man, that's just really, really frustrating? Or did you even have those?
Definitely. Still do.
You still do?
Yeah. Jazz is hard. I'm trying to play, I'm trying to transcribe horn licks right now on the guitar. And that, you spend 8 hours transcribing, you might get 30 seconds of music. It's ridiculous. But in the beginning, that same kind of like anger, frustration feeling, like sometimes that would put the chord through. If I was sitting there for 25 minutes trying to play it and I finally just then it came through and it was like, okay, I can put this emotion to use a little bit. And then you learn to back off or whatever. But that first, you kind of just gotta jump, swan dive into it. So I immediately felt like I got a return on the work, and then just the feelings I had. Like every time, you could play this chord 20 different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I had no idea. I'd always seen like capos on guitars before. I had no idea what they did.
Yeah.
I was like, it makes it look like it's easier to play.
The clampy thing. It looks like a dental tool or something.
It does. All right. So at what point did you kind of get to your guitar journey where you're like, hey, I think I can and want to play in front of people?
Probably a year in.
Just a year.
Well, not in front of, people at a venue or anything, but I was like, I'm going to see what this amp can do. I took it in the garage and kind of cranked it up, and I just planned on playing one big shung and then
just one big power chord.
Yeah. And then going back to my lair or whatever. But, my grandmother was over and heard it, and it was it. She insisted, like, play me what you know. And I just remember I hate this feeling. Whatever that was, this completely negates it. I don't want to play for anybody. But seeing how much they enjoyed it, and it was started becoming like, learn this song, or
Oh yeah, everybody wants to put in their requests, right?
yeah. So it was bringing people together a little bit, and then I kind of just shut it out. Now it's like I only receive the positive of what people intake. If they don't like it, I'm not here for that reason. I'm here to either get paid or because I'm trying to better my playing or have fun. So I soon and I just got out of that recital nonsense. I was like, well, I just want to sit and play. But that one time where she heard me out there kind of was the first time anybody heard me play, and the rest of the family was like, oh yeah, I wasn't turning it up loud in my room or anything.
Sure.
I was scared a little bit. I was like, I'd rather just not play anything than just have the neighbors at all just be like, this kid is just, choking this guitar every day.
Where's the screaming cat coming from?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but I think that's a huge step, right? Because you're a performer, you're a guitarist. In what I do, being a trial lawyer, everybody has to have. If you're going to be a trial lawyer, you got to have your first trial. You got to have your first hearing. You got to have your first deposition. You've got to do that thing where you put yourself out there to be judged. And what you said was so important. Is, hey, look, I'm only absorbing the positive. I don't care what you do. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people who don't appreciate or want to give you, negative comments, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
And having that ability to not pay any attention to that, to know that you're out there either to do a job to the best of your ability or to grow.
Yeah.
That is a superpower, man.
It is, but I'll tell you this though. I wanted to get to a point, like at first that was necessary to be like, this is the goal. Anything in the way, I don't need to hear. But once you get to a point where you're content with where you're at and it's only looking up and up, then I kind of shifted to like, let me just become invincible and hear everything and use it to either better myself and be like, dang, that person was right. All just to, polish the system a little bit. So instead of just being like, I don't want to hear anything negative, your words can't hurt me. It's like, bring it on. I've been at gigs where somebody either saved me in the moment by yelling right at me, like to do something, or changed the way I thought about it afterwards. So any kind of criticism now is like, I try to see it completely where they're coming from and not take it personally or anything, but it's useful. It's very useful.
Absolutely. And I think that's the next step in maturity, right? First, it's putting yourself out there and kind of developing the confidence to do it again and again and to grow. And then also kind of getting to that point where you're willing to accept the feedback, right? You can put that ego aside and, not get hurt on what people think you could do better, but also ignore the people who are just wrong, right?
Yeah,
or
like
who are just detractors.
Down. Anyone who says turn down is just clearly wrong.
Spoken like a true guitarist. Spoken like a true guitarist. All right, so you've been in the music industry a little while now. Let's talk about some of the things that maybe people don't think about when they, everybody wants to see themselves on stage, right? Whether they have any musical inclination or not. They want people to clap and they want to feel like a star. That's fantastic and a great dream, and a lot of people chase that dream. But what is behind all that it takes to get there, to get to the point where you're on a stage playing for money in front of bigger crowds?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's always, did I become more comfortable, or do I see clearer on the instrument than I did yesterday? I'm trying to always just learn and make things comfortable. Just always get more refined and just in my own head. So a lot of people start playing big shows and they get, enough chops to get out there and start making money and going, and then it kind of plateaus and stays there. And that, that's great. They found their thing and they're making money doing the dream. That's like, what else could you want? But for me, it's like I have a hard time, like, going ballistic on stage and all this. I'm just kind of like, all right, woo, we made it through that. I'm just always on the up and up. Like, not necessarily how could I play this better, but where can I channel it where it's like, that's exactly what I meant. I had a terrible day today, but you'll never know. It still just came out clear and kind of just clearing up that direct channel from what I meant to say on the guitar. So I got to that point of playing gigs and all that, and it was like, oh, this is the real beginning of your learning on the instrument and music, really, not just, playing with other people, taking cues, and then, being a side man or whatever you want to say, like what I am. Sometimes you take the credit for when things go horribly wrong. Like a singer doesn't know first thing about how to start or end a song, and everyone's looking right at you. And then when it goes awesome, they're like, she's the best singer in the world, So you gotta, it's maddening if you let it. But so I'm kind of just playing a different game in my head. I just like to be like, the show was this level of whatever, but I'm better than yesterday. I feel just, it's less of a struggle because, man, after 2 days of not playing, I'm worthless. And not really, but guitar players will know what I mean. Like, you just feel like naked. Like, everything you do is like, whoo, I barely stuck that.
Yeah.
So I just really try to stay steeped in, just if I'm out here doing this, I want to have a smile and be like, I brought my part to the table, and that lets me enjoy, the crowd a little bit more, or what the singer's doing, and vibe with the drummer more. So I just, you got to get out of your own way a little bit, and I'm still just every time trying to level that up. If I haven't, I failed.
And so I think you brought up an interesting point there that a lot of us who aren't in bands, or and I never will be, don't ever think about, right? And that is, oh, you get up on stage and you play your chords and that's that. But that's not that. You have to interact with other people and be paying attention to certain cues and this, that, and that. How long did it take you to figure that out? And how difficult is it to go from one band to another as you kind of move through your career?
It was difficult in certain situations, not to say like at the beginning it was hard and now it's easy. But a lot of gigs I would take and are taking, it's like I meet everybody at the show. It's like, I hope he learned the songs. Hi, I'm Joe. I'll be your guitar player. And that's a fast track of learning a lot at one time. And it's, you get exactly what you put in. But sometimes you get thrown a wrench and it's like you could have never prepared for that ever, but now you still kind of know or whatever. So it's country music's easier. A lot of that stuff is the same and transposable without a capo, so to speak, or whatever.
Right.
But a lot of it is just you kind of get that 2-minute window of like, oh no, here's my intro right here. It is all on me. These people don't know me. Nobody's here for me. Let's just put it to the test here. And that feels great, whether it crashes and burns or not. It's like, that's the stuff right there. That's what it is that got me here. That kind of like, I'm having so much fun doing this dream of music and all this fun stuff. So maybe I should be held accountable for just one little thing here. And I know I can do it. So let's bring it at me. But man, yeah, have I crashed and burned like that and just back to the drawing board, Yeah,
it's, and I think with anything where you're having to think on your feet, where you're having to interact with people, there's always so much more to it, right? So we get up to go try a case, and I know what whoever I'm trying to case is going to be doing because we've been talking about it for a long time. But things happen, right? As soon as the trial starts, something's going to go sideways, something's going to come up you're not expecting, and you got to think on your feet. And maybe I'm not the one who's examining a witness, but my fellow trial lawyer over here is up there, and I see something happening. I got to anticipate what she might need and be ready to hand her an exhibit because I know she's thinking the same thing I am. And that doesn't happen overnight, right? That's a lot of work together and teamwork. So if I'm going and I'm trying a case with somebody I've never tried a case before, or tried a case with before. I don't know him that well. I mean, I'm going to try to be like overly prepared. Okay, well, maybe he's going to approach it this way, or maybe she's going to approach it that way, and kind of try to do this. And oh, by the way, we're also paying attention to what the jury's doing.
Ooh.
Right. And so your attention is spread so many different directions, but that's also is what gives you that feeling of it is pure adrenaline for about 8 hours a day. I never sleep as well as I do after a day's worth of trial because you are locked in, fully focused for basically 8 or 9 straight hours, however long you go that day.
Wow.
And so it seems like a lot of comparison, right? You're up there on stage, you're amplified. So any mistake you make, pretty much everybody's going to hear, especially the people on that stage. But you've got to learn to anticipate what, this person may do or what the singer is going to do, having never met them before.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine what you go through with a trial like that. But there's gear failure. Sometimes it's just like the amp fries up. Yeah. Cable. You got
computer doesn't work.
Or it's, a crowd of drunk people really want to hear this song that you don't know. And the band's like, let's go. Just stuff where it's just like, why must this happen?
Right. Well, thankfully we have phones now. We can like pull up chord progressions and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I guess if it came to that, it would be, but I'd be doing that. But man, it's just impossible. And you got to just stand there and kind of laugh at yourself, be like, this is a great movie I'm watching right now. Like,
my life is a drama.
Yeah.
All right. So lots of people learn to play the guitar really, really well. What sets those apart who make it from those who don't?
Great question. I think fewer and fewer people kind of have their own voice where most people can be like, I know who that is. That they just have an unmistakable voice on the instrument. Fewer than that, even those that do have that, like run with the ball as hard as they can, and then just uncover. I would like to say like uncover every nook and cranny on the fretboard to where wherever you kind of end up, there's something to do, and it's still you. It's not like you've learned a bunch of like licks and tricks to weave your way around things. It's like you kind of just. It's like speaking. Maybe you have a broader vocabulary. But you wouldn't just like write the alphabet down as fast as you can all the way through. You kind of just have a little jewel to drop in here and there, that means what you're trying to say. So like, I don't know if you know, like Derek Trucks, slide player, big Dwayne Allman guy, like Allman Brothers.
Yeah, definitely know the Allman Brothers.
He's probably, guitar players can hear him and be like, that guy is just... He's singing to me right now. He's doing his thing. Stevie, for example. I'm trying to think of living people.
Right.
And there's a ton of them, but I try to have that and not lose that by diluting it with, 25 jazz standards and just trying to inject, licks into my playing. But it's so rare and you know it when you see a player who just is that's them. They're not. It's not for you. It's not a sport. It's not like, oh, I'm just gifted. I just pick it up and shred. It's like, no, that it's it's their life's work as well as all of that.
Yeah,
it's everything.
You almost hear that passion coming through the amplifier.
Yeah, it's sometimes you can hear it's like, oh, I can hear that he doesn't care what I think, and then maybe his girlfriend walked in and his mood changed a little. Like it's that minute. You can zoom in on like, I know how this guy's feeling a little bit. He's angry and I like it or whatever. There's so many little things. Once you get to that point of just projecting you onto whether you're playing a 12-bar blues solo or Donna Lee or whatever, like you can get to a point where it's like I'm talking and it's going to be different every single time, but it's that was me in that moment. It'll never happen again, and it's all acceptable. So I just love that because it means I'll never get bored of it. I could be 70 and still making new ideas and kind of just it's endless.
Very cool. So you also teach, right?
Yes,
You
sir.
teach over at the Guitar Sanctuary. When you have certain students who tell you, "Hey, Joe, this is what I want to do. I'm passionate about guitar. How do I get to the next level?" What do you tell them?
It's different for every student, and I've struggled with this a lot. I love to teach players that already have an idea of what they want, and I can kind of come in and just sway them here. But I've been teaching a lot of beginners who also have like a strong idea of what they want, and it's super advanced. So more times than not, I'll just give them, even if it's a small piece of, like something crazy difficult. Like a big thing now is like anime themes. I have a lot of students who want to play these like electric guitar ripping Japanese anime things, and it's rip roaring. It's crazy, but it's hard to then backpedal and be like, here's a scale to learn.
Right.
So I just kind of give them a tiny piece of that. And, the ones that really go for it are playing that song within 2 months or something like
Wow.
that. So I've struggled trying to discipline any kind of younger student. I know me, and I would hate
I was about
that.
to say, yeah.
It just doesn't work. And the store books people for me, so I'll meet them there, and I don't turn anyone away or anything. But sometimes it's just easier to be like, all right, here's bar one of this crazy thing you want, instead of here's all your major chords and stuff.
Right.
And that might not be healthy. I'm not a teacher's teacher like that, but
But it's not boring.
I just want to, give them a spark enough to pick it up at least once until their next lesson,
Right. Right. Awesome. Well, hey, we have time for one more question. I was in on this question. So I don't know if you're a reader or not, but give me your top 3 books that you would recommend.
Oh, wow. There's a Frank Zappa documentary type book, or like a book of stories. It's just called Zappa. I love that. Because I just had no idea. Are you familiar with that guy?
Oh, yeah.
Like super weird.
Very weird.
And super kind of like stubborn and angsty, and like it kind of seems like for no reason, but he's got a reason. So I love that book. I'm not a huge reader. I'm reading Darth Plagueis the Wise. I don't know if you're a Star Wars nut at all. I don't know if you know the Emperor in Star Wars, the big evil guy.
Yeah.
Well, he had a master too, and he's twice as evil.
Gotcha. All right. So you're into the Star Wars. Fair enough.
Yeah. And then a third book, the classics. I read a lot in school. We had Latin as a second language for 8 years, so I was reading all that stuff, Greek and whatnot. That's not what I would read. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm at a loss for a third.
Is
book.
like Beowulf and those
that's
things
like
that we
fifth grade, and then I'm trying to think here. Like,
all right, well let me switch it up on you. Give me like, for somebody who enjoys music, like an album or two that maybe they haven't heard of.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Start to finish, a great album for somebody starting music. Led Zeppelin 2.
Yeah.
You
solid.
just can't miss. There's something for everybody on there 60 years later. Let's see. I used to be big into Elton John. Man, he has some bangers. He has some great songs.
That is a regular on our record player at home.
Man.
Because we don't have to worry about, like, the kids can hear it too.
Like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I was listening to all of that. That was formative in my music theory learning. Any Elton John album, really. Queen was a big one. I used to build Legos to Queen.
Our kids love Queen.
Oh man. And then, so Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore is a big one. Live albums are great because it's, again, it's like that will never happen again, like that 10-minute versions of songs. Like, what's not to love? But I'll give you a blues record. B.B. King Live at the Regal. 1965, I think. It's just peak year B.B. King just going off.
I love watching videos of him play. There was one that I saw where he broke a string in the middle of a song.
Changed it.
Just changed it while he was playing the song and like didn't miss a beat. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you being here. And thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode. We'll see you next time on the Driven Crowd Podcast.